I kept telling myself this was just adjustment. It isn't.
So you're really throwing everything away?
No. I'm finally admitting what this has become.
You're probably wondering how Chloe went from planning a wedding to handing the ring back. To understand that, we need to go back to when Ryan first entered her life. Ever waited so long for something that when it finally showed up, you were too afraid to question whether it was really from God? That was Chloe. She had prayed for marriage for years, watched younger people settle down, smiled through wedding invitations, and learned how to ignore the quiet pressure that came with being the unmarried woman everyone had advice for. At 34, Chloe had grown tired of people trying to explain her singleness to her. Some said she was too selective, others said she worked too much, and a few women in church had even suggested that she needed to become more approachable. Chloe usually smiled and changed the subject because she had learned that most people were more interested in solving her life than understanding it. She wanted marriage, but she did not want to spend every year feeling as though her life had failed to begin because a husband had not arrived. That was why Ryan seemed like such a relief when he entered her life. He was 37, established in his career, active in church, and very intentional about marriage. He spoke respectfully around older people, knew how to carry himself, and seemed serious about faith. Chloe's mother liked him almost immediately, and several people around her began acting as though the matter had already been settled. Chloe tried not to get carried away, but after years of waiting, it was difficult not to wonder whether this was finally the answer she had prayed for. Ryan was charming when things were going well, but Chloe slowly noticed that disagreement brought out another side of him. He did not shout often, and that made it easier for her to dismiss his behavior at first. Instead, he became cold, withdrawn, and punishing whenever she questioned him. If Chloe disagreed with a decision he wanted to make, he would accuse her of being argumentative. When she insisted on keeping an important work commitment instead of canceling it because he wanted to see her, he told her that marriage would require her to stop behaving as though she answered only to herself. Chloe did not like those moments, but she kept talking herself out of concern. She reminded herself that no relationship was perfect, that marriage required adjustment, and that perhaps she had become too independent after living alone for so long. The truth she did not want to admit was that her age had started speaking louder than her peace. At 34, she feared that walking away from a serious relationship might mean waiting several more years, and that fear made her more willing to excuse things she would once have confronted immediately. 7 months into the relationship, Ryan proposed, and Chloe said yes. Her family celebrated, wedding plans began, and for a while, Chloe tried to believe the uneasiness she had felt around him would settle with time. Instead, the engagement made his behavior harder to ignore. Ryan became increasingly controlling about where Chloe went, who called her, and how she spent her time. When offended, he could become mean and unforgiving, dragging old mistakes into new arguments long after she had apologized. He also showed little restraint with food, often overindulging without considering others, which Chloe gradually saw as part of a wider pattern of excess and entitlement. More troubling were the women Ryan called colleagues. Some messaged him late at night, certain conversations disappeared, and one seemed unusually familiar with his personal life. Whenever Chloe questioned it, Ryan accused her of insecurity. During premarital counseling, he claimed they rarely disagreed. Chloe quietly corrected him, admitting they had issues with trust and communication. Ryan stayed calm until they reached the car, then accused her of humiliating him and warned that a respectful wife should know what to keep private. By then, Chloe was no longer looking at isolated flaws. She was seeing a pattern. That night, Chloe sat on the floor beside her bed and prayed differently from the way she had prayed for months. She did not ask God to make the wedding successful, and she did not ask him to change Ryan. Instead, she asked for truth. She told God that if she was holding on to the relationship because she was afraid of being single again, she wanted that fear exposed. It was not a comfortable prayer because she already suspected that the answer might cost her something she had spent years waiting for. Over the next few weeks, the problems became harder to ignore. Ryan complained about how often Chloe spoke to her sister, questioned why she needed certain friendships, and became irritated whenever she made decisions without consulting him first. He often disguised control as leadership, and when Chloe resisted, he told her she was too independent to become a peaceful wife. 3 months before the wedding, Chloe ended the engagement. The decision embarrassed her deeply, and the weeks that followed were painful. Relatives whispered, church members asked careful questions, and Ryan told several people that Chloe had allowed outside voices to confuse her. Chloe returned the ring and went home to a room filled with wedding materials she no longer needed. Life did not immediately reward Chloe for making the difficult decision. She turned 35, then 36, and nothing romantic happened. Her younger brother married, one of her closest friends had a baby, and Chloe attended both celebrations with genuine happiness, while privately wondering whether she had lost her own chance at marriage. There were nights when she questioned whether ending the engagement had really been wisdom, or whether fear had made her walk away from an imperfect but workable relationship. During that season, Chloe poured herself into work and was eventually promoted to a management position at a healthcare supply company. The promotion came with more responsibility, better pay, and regular contact with new clients. She stopped treating every new man she met as a possible answer to prayer and slowly became more settled in herself. She still wanted marriage, but desperation was no longer making decisions for her. Chloe first met Ethan through work after his company placed a large order with hers. Their first conversation was entirely professional, and she barely remembered it afterwards. Months later, they met again at a leadership program organized by several churches in the city, and this time they recognized each other. Ethan was 40, calm, thoughtful, and not particularly interested in impressing people. He did not dominate conversations, and he did not seem uncomfortable when someone disagreed with him. Their friendship developed slowly, and that pace suited Chloe. She noticed small things about him long before she considered him romantically. Ethan apologized when he was wrong, listened without becoming defensive, and did not treat leadership as a reason to control people. Once, Chloe corrected him about something he had misunderstood during a planning meeting, and he simply thanked her for pointing it out. The moment was ordinary, but it stayed with her because she remembered how differently Ryan had reacted whenever she challenged him. When Ethan eventually told Chloe that he was interested in pursuing a serious relationship, she did not immediately agree. She told him about the broken engagement and admitted that she was afraid of missing warning signs again. Ethan did not try to convince her that he was different, and he did not pressure her to make a quick decision. He told her that if they were going to build something serious, there was no reason to rush the process. Their relationship grew through honest conversations rather than constant excitement. They discussed finances, family expectations, children, conflict, faith, work, and the parts of themselves they were still trying to improve. Chloe discovered that Ethan had also spent years wondering why marriage had not happened for him. He had cared for his father through a long illness and had turned down relationships he knew he was not emotionally prepared to handle. For the first time, Chloe realized that while she had spent years believing she was the only one waiting, the man she would eventually marry had been living through his own season of preparation. Chloe married Ethan at 37. The wedding was smaller than the one she had once planned with Ryan, and she found that she preferred it that way. There was less pressure to impress people and more attention on the life they were actually beginning together. During the reception, Chloe's mother quietly admitted that she had once believed the canceled wedding was a disaster. Chloe smiled because she had thought the same thing. Later that evening, Chloe remembered Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, which says that God makes everything beautiful in His time. For years, she had interpreted God's timing as a long delay before receiving what she wanted, but her understanding had changed. Sometimes His timing meant protection from something that looked like an answer. Sometimes it meant allowing years to pass while fear, impatience, and poor judgment were being corrected. Chloe had once believed that the hardest part of waiting was not knowing when marriage would come, But she eventually understood that arriving at the right season mattered more than arriving quickly. The years had not been empty, and the delay had not been careless. God had been working in both of their lives long before either of them knew the other existed. If you are waiting on God for marriage, do not let the length of the wait push you into accepting what you know is wrong. Not every relationship that arrives after years of prayer is an answer from God, and not every delay means God has forgotten you. Sometimes the delay is protection, sometimes it is preparation, and sometimes God is keeping you from making a permanent decision out of temporary fear. You may look around and feel as though everyone else is moving ahead while your own life is standing still, but you do not know what God is doing beyond what you can see. His timing may not match the age, plan, or deadline you had in mind, but that does not make it careless. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He hath made everything beautiful in his time." So do not force a door because you are afraid another one may never open. Trust God enough to wait for what is right, because arriving late at the right place is far better than arriving early at the wrong one.